that we will get started. Welcome to the August Upper Fells Point Improvement Association meeting. I'm Liz Bement, president of UFPIA. We have Brian Seal. Say hello, Brian. He's the vice president. Joe Whitford. Is Joe on yet?
I don't see
Not
him.
on yet. John Beecher. John, he's our secretary.
Look at that baby, he's getting big. She's getting big.
Because oh, look at that. Those big eyes.
Pascal Patton. Pascal, say hello. He's our treasurer.
Good evening, everyone.
Is anyone here, is this their first meeting? I think you said, Mallory, this is your first meeting? If you want to just introduce yourself and say what block you're from, you have to unmute yourself.
Working. Okay, great. Hi, first meeting. I'm Mallory. So I just moved back into 1931 East Pratt, right on the same block as Joe, actually. My dad and aunt own this building now, and my grandfather owned it since 86, I think. I've lived here on and off before, but glad to be back.
Welcome. Anybody else? No? Okay, so for this meeting, we don't have a guest speaker, but we have two items that need to be voted on, and they are two residences in Upper Fells Point that want to convert to multifamily dwellings. And one of them is 236 South Ann, and the other one is 1709 Bank Street. So we have people here that will be presenting on behalf of each of those, presenting their plans and what they plan on doing. And then people have the opportunity to ask questions. And after that, I believe that we will take a vote as a community association on whether we support them or not. So our first presentation will be Paul Pierre on behalf of 236 South Ann Street. Paul?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Liz. Yeah, so my name is Paul Pierre. Apologies that I am not in front of a computer. I had to, my wife is giving birth in a couple of weeks and just had some stuff related to that popped up. But anyways, so unfortunately I'm on my phone and not in front of a computer, so won't be able to share my screen or present anything. But just a little quick background about myself. You know, I am currently a DC resident. My partner, who does this stuff with me, he lives out in Baltimore. He was living in the city as since moved out to the county, you know, to get some more room with his growing family. You know, currently living in DC. My company, Circa Living, we specialize in fine urban dwelling. You know, we seek to integrate, you know, historical aspects of a community or of a building into modern development needs. You know, we strictly focus on urban dwelling. Most recent project that I've done, you know, if anyone would like to have a look at it, would be 210 Morgan Street Northwest. That was a residential multifamily condo for sale, multifamily condo development out in DC. If anyone is familiar with the DC market, it's in the Trunkston Circle neighborhood. That's the most recent project that I've worked on. Pretty cool project. If you have some time to check it out, you can have a look at it. 236 South Ann Street, you know, is very cool building, very nicely positioned, and my company essentially, you know, would like to go in there and bring 3 2-bedroom, 2-bath units there. Each unit would be about 1,100 square feet each, so pretty sizable units. Each unit would be located on each floor of that building. Currently, it's three stories, not including the basement. The basement would just be used as storage space. We will not be doing anything to the front facade. The current masonry brick facade that's currently there would remain. We're also not truly doing any additions to it. We intend to the roof line. We plan to make that just one contiguous line that goes all the way to the back of the building. Currently, it stops about halfway, so we'll just carry that all the way back. We'll make some structural repairs to the building. Where we see that there are some structural issues that need to be addressed. Let's see what else I could say. Yeah, pretty much that's it. And the property at one point was used as a three unit dwelling. This is really just based on just some research that I've done, given the fact that there are it's currently sub-metered. All the utilities are obviously outside of water. All the utilities are currently sub-metered for three dwellings. The gas and the electric each have their own meters. So further indicating that at some point that this was used as a three unit dwelling. So, I don't really view that we're changing the use much. Instead of just restoring the building and restoring it back to its original use.
What
Happy
you're
to take
building
any
on the back,
questions.
You're talking about building onto the back.
No, we won't be building onto the back. We'll be making repairs to the back. So currently the roof, that covers the third level, stops halfway at the property. We just intend to continue that back so that it goes all the way to the back of the property. We'll add some decks to the rear, but nothing major.
So you are the current owner of the property, and how long have you owned it?
I currently have it under contract. We have not closed yet. So technically not the owner.
Okay. Liz, I'm not sure how this is supposed to work, but I have some comments that I'd like to make.
No, it's open now. I think, I believe that Paul's finished his presentation, so now it's open to questions and comments.
Okay. Well, I unfortunately missed the first few minutes of the presentation, so I apologize for that. Thanks for coming to speak before the organization, Paul. So my name is Brian McGalley. I'm a resident of Upper Fells. I live a few doors up from the property that you're looking to purchase. And I and some of the neighbors have some concerns about the proposed developments. So I've polled all of the adjacent residents. So myself at 226, the resident at 228, 230, 232, 234, and 238. And we are unanimously opposed to making this a 3-unit dwelling. From what we understand, it's currently zoned as a 2-unit. So I guess maybe there's some conflict in the information that's available about how the structure was used in the past. And we have, a couple of particular issues that I'd like to point out. So number one is noise. I mean, you add, a lot of people to a single dwelling, and you can, cause issues related to noise. This is a quiet residential area. Parking is a perpetual perennial problem in the neighborhood. Recycling and trash for the multi-unit dwellings is often a problem. I think it really kind of changes the community atmosphere. And it really contributes to much faster resident turnover than we'd like to see. We'd like to see people who come in and are really committed to building on the neighborhood and building on what we have here. And, you know, we've had, I'd say, a pretty poor experience with the property since it was sold a year or so ago. You know, we have little faith that, well, based on the experience that we've had with the sort of parade of owners since the property was initially sold, we've had a lot of issues. So, you know, basically there's been no maintenance and upkeep to the structure thus far. And the structural integrity of the building itself could be compromised. The property has not been secured. I've spoken to one of the neighbors. He's had to chase off vagrants from the property. There's significant weed and overgrowth in the back, and there's a rat infestation that's spilled over into adjacent properties. So, you know, on one hand, we'd like to see that property taken care of, but on the other, we have significant concerns about turning it into a 3-unit dwelling. And if it's currently zoned as a 2-unit, which is, I believe is the case, I don't see why it can't be kept in that status. So that's those are my comments.
Yeah, I mean, definitely appreciate those comments and those concerns, and I think they're definitely valid. You know, I can't speak to all of them, but you know, as far as you know, the structure and all the other deferred maintenance items of that building, you know, it's only going to get worse. Many people have looked at this, including their current owner, to see what they can do, and you know, not to, you know, speak to their competence or lack thereof. You know, they just haven't been able to make it work. And I think, you know, this is something that I've dealt with in the past. I've dealt with, you know, buildings like this in the past, and so have a lot of experience, and I'm able to bring those expertise to solve those issues. You know, and obviously the longer it sits vacant, you know, that only, you know, augments the problem of the problems that you just listed in terms of pest and different maintenance items. You know, there will likely be a structural issue with that building if it is not addressed, you know, within the next 6 to 12 months. You know, so I definitely think it's, you know, in everyone's best interest that, you know, someone does something there. In terms of trash and recycling, you know, while these will be rentals, you know, but you know, the nature of them will be so that the renters or the tenants will have their own dedicated bins that will be stored on the property. You know, so we'll add any additional you know, unpleasant you know, site or anything to the property or to that block or to that street. You know, as far as the noise goes, you know, how we construct things, how we've developed things, we definitely, you know, look to, you know, because I've worked with things, you know, that are adjacent to other properties, you know, row houses and things, and you know, we always, you know, go in and make sure that you know, we provide, you know, building materials that can contain the sound from within, and also in between the different tenants. So yeah, so you know, I think we can definitely address some of those issues that you bring up. But more importantly, I just think that, you know, some attention needs to be brought to this building, and I do believe that my group is the perfect group to do so.
Is there a reason why you decide to make this a rental property and not renovate it and sell it as a single family dwelling? In this neighborhood right now, there seems to be a overabundance of rental property, but on the other hand, what I'm reading in the paper, there's a big demand for single family homes. That I mean, the stuff that in our neighborhood that's been up for sale has not stayed for sale very long. It's sold very quickly.
Yeah.
Yet there seems to be a lot of apartments that are going unrented around here.
Yeah, Yeah, very good point. You know, I like to, I seek to provide housing options, you know, to to all individuals. I have friends who grew up in the Fells Point area, who, are not, who would love to stay there. Their families still live there. They would love to stay there, but they're currently not in position to buy something, and so renting would obviously be the best option for them. So, you know, seeking to provide housing options, for individuals outside of just ownership when they're not ready, is what I kind of focus on. And especially in a market like this, where I feel a lot of people are getting priced out due to multiple offers on houses. They leaving people with not a lot of options. You know, the, to where they can live. Um, so I think providing additional option would just serve the benefit to those people. And in addition, I think it increases. Sorry.
Is this going to be affordable housing or market rate housing?
That this would be market rate housing. So yeah, so this would be market rate housing. And in addition, the individuals, I think who are going to be looking at this place or renting here are going to be people who want to stay in the neighborhood or close proximity to the neighborhood. So I feel, they, become additional buyer pools, that could potentially, could continue to live in the neighborhood, which, indirectly helps to stabilize home values in the area.
So Molly, you have your hand
Yeah.
up.
So what concerns me, and I just want to support my concerns, having a 3-apartment dwelling that with 6 bedrooms just reflects an awful lot of people that potentially could be moving into a single row house. 6 bedrooms certainly could be 6 cars. And I assume you're aware that parking is virtually impossible on our block. It just seems like a bit much. I walked out and looked at the house that's across the street from me. It's just hard to imagine 3 floors of 2 bedrooms and a bath. It just seems impractical. So.
Yeah, very good point. So currently, the records show that it's a 2-unit. So, if you were to take it the route of keeping it a 2-unit, the number of bedroom counts would not differ from a 2-unit to a 3-unit. So I don't think that we're going to, it being a 3-unit, would add any additional traffic or any additional headaches in that regard.
I just want to add one thing about that, because I just got an email from Evan Helfrich. He's the code enforcement attorney for Baltimore City, and he just happens to be on the live in Upper Fells Point, and he's on the land use committee. And he said that 236 South Ann and 1709 Bank Street were long-term owner-occupied houses, families that had been there since the 1970s or longer. So there is an issue of converting single-family homeowner houses to high-end apartments. And so I'm wondering if that sounds like it may have been a 2-unit building, but it was not legally a 2-unit building. That's what he seems to be saying by his email. I'm not sure, but he looked into the matter and he said they were both of those were single-family houses. I just got this email.
Yeah, I'm Shirley, and I actually live on the same block as Molly Fine over there, and I live kind of diagonal from the house that we're discussing about. And actually, in addition to that, I was just texting a family member who lives directly opposite from the house, and she says that that house was always a single-family house. The only reason why it was 2 units was because they designed it for their grandmother to live there, and they've been in there for 3 generations. So that's one point to bring up. So it was always a single family use house in that sense. And yeah, to bring up the situation about the parking issue, yes. You can potentially have somewhere between 5 and 6 cars trying to park on the street, or if not on the street, but in this general area, which will cause a lot of parking issues for all the residents who are here already. And in addition to that, you will have a lot of garbage waste from 3 separate units that will, just cause a lot more trouble. And I have a lot of issues with that. Brian Steele, I believe that, the family member had spoken to you. Did you have any other things to bring up?
Yeah, I assume you're talking about Cherokee.
Yeah.
I talked to her is that what you're talking about?
Yes, it is she.
Yeah. Her main, I was talking to her, her main concerns were kind of around the construction and around the trash and everything. She didn't mention parking, but she's like, I guess kind of moving from that, I guess kind of what we're going to be looking at here with both 236 and with 1709 is kind of what we want our neighborhood to look like. And it's, do we want our neighborhood to be mainly single family homes, or do we want it to be a more diverse, with age, with race, with stage in life, and with I've looked at some of the census data, and I know Liz has some concerns about some of the census data, but looking at how our neighborhood has looked over the last 10 years, we've become less of a renter neighborhood and had more owners. And we actually hit the tipping point in 2016 where we have more owners than renters. And I know Liz may have some issues with some of that data, but really what we're looking at here is, what do we want our neighborhood to look like? Like, are we looking to not allow more rentals and to push for more single family home ownership, or are we looking to open that up? I just, in the last year, I actually moved from Register Street over to Wolf Street, and me and my wife were looking for a much smaller unit. We had a 2,600 square foot unit over in Register Street, and we wanted something much smaller. And it's actually really hard to find something smaller. We ended up with an 1,100 square foot place here on Wolf Street, but there's not a ton of diversity in the housing stock here, just because there is a lot of single family homes. And so, especially this summer, as we are looking at what do we want Upper Fells Point to look like, especially, as there's a bunch of Black Lives Matter signs around our neighborhood, as we become more of a single family home owner occupied neighborhood, we have become much more white. We went from, a 45% white neighborhood in 2010 to in 2018, we're 65% white. And so, there is the idea, are we saying, no, we don't want rentals and we want single family homes? If that's the case, that's fine. We can shut this down. But if we're saying we have concerns around trash, or we have concerns around sound, or we have concerns around all these things, Paul has come here to deal with those things. He hasn't even closed on it yet. He's here to deal with some of those things. So if it's, we are willing to get to a yes, but we have these concerns, let's deal with those things. But if it's, we don't want to have renters in our neighborhood, then let's just shut this down and say we don't want that and vote this down.
Okay, so just in response to that, I would just I'll get to you next, Brian, but I just wanted to say in response, because that makes it sound like we have all owner occupied houses here and we have very little rentals. So Kurt and I have done this project where we're walking around, and we've also looked at the SDAT, where we see who is owner occupied, who is renting. And then we've looked at the rentals, and we're walking around to see what are multifamily units versus a single house that's rented out to a, you know, a single family or a single whatever. And then in addition, Evan, who is the attorney for the city, has additional information. So without taking Evan's information into account, because he just sent it to us today with about 50% of the addresses he sent to us, we didn't even count as multifamily. And given the fact that Kurt and I haven't finished the walk around, seeing how many units are in each multifamily dwelling that we see, we're looking at 898 rental units versus 470 owner-occupied homes within the boundaries of Upper Fells Point. So that's a 66% are rentals. And 34% are owner occupied, and it's going to go higher than that, I am quite sure, given Evan's additional data and given the fact that we haven't finished counting additional dwellings in those multifamilies. So, you know, while the census may have said we are tracking upward in home ownership, if you track upward from 20% home ownership to 22% home ownership or whatever over the years, it's still a low number. And so I think that information, I just wanted to put that out there as additional information to what Brian was saying, in that we have a lot of rental units currently in Upper Fells Point. So, you know, is it tracking upward? Is it tracking, you know, I don't know, but I'm just saying there are many. And I just wanted to put that out there to give people an additional bit of information. So then, Brian, you had something to say.
Yeah, I just had a couple of final points to make. So already on the 200 block of Ann Street, I would estimate that a quarter to or so of the properties are already rentals. Now, they're not multi-unit rentals, but the unit directly next to me is a 3-unit rental, right? And I can say, just having lived here for the last 7 or 8 years, I haven't seen a lot of sort of diversity in terms of the tenant base that's come through there. But what I have seen is a lot of trash and a lot of issues with noise. And I've become the default caretaker for that property because the owner, lives in another state, and he's a nice guy and he's a responsible person, but he's not dealing with issues day to day, whereas I am. And it's not an ideal situation. And the house that we're talking about was owner occupied for decades, right? I mean, that family has been there since, I don't know, the 20s. And, before the final occupant left, there was one person living there. So you go from having one person to having 8, 10. It's a very different situation. So I don't think that you necessarily diminish the opportunity for varieties of people to find housing in the neighborhood by preventing this one property from becoming something that's very different from all of the other properties, save the one that's directly next to me, which, I can go on about how much I've had to do over the years to just make the situation livable. So that's my final point.
I'd like to say something. All right, I find it offensive that it's been projected that Upper Fells Point does not want renters. We've always been an association that has welcomed tenants, renters, the same as a homeowner.
Yep.
I've lived here for 35 years. The demographics have definitely changed, but I don't think the rental numbers have changed. You don't see the density of renters now, say on Pratt Street or Lombard, that you used to in yesteryear. Now it's farther south and just interspersed through our community. Before, it was just the larger homes were cut up into many rooming units. And Washington Street, if the buildings weren't vacant, the house I bought in 85 had been vacant for 20 years. But many of the homes there were homeowners, or, the people there were homeowners. It was, some of the other corridors and the alley streets were always predominantly rental, but I don't know. I think we welcome rentals, but I don't think we want to try to jam as many rentals as we can into these buildings. Maybe all come in and try to revive a 2-unit thing instead of going for 3. It might have been, I don't know, maybe receptive or been, a little more warmly receptive. That's all.
I mean, would it change? Like, I mean, we're going to vote on this. Like, would it change if this was a vote for 2 versus 3? Like, Paul, would that change anything for you?
Well, I mean, the current use group for, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
The current use group, and I think that's what the gentleman from the city was getting at, for a residential, single family dwelling, or for a two unit is the same. So I think I just wanted to throw that out there. But I mean, yeah, I think that does make a difference if it's a 2-unit or a or not.
May I say
If that was the
something?
case, would you not go through with this?
Can I say something? I'm hearing that the immediate neighbors have a lot of concern about 3 units in the building, and Shirley's done some homework to find out from residents on the block to find out it's always been a single family living in this house since, like, sounds like the early 70s at least.
3
And
generations.
3 generations, and whatever was the second unit was like an in-law apartment or for the grandparent to live in the house. So it's really been a single family home. But I think it's really significant. The neighbors in the association who are the immediate neighbors are telling us they're really concerned about it, and they don't really support a 3-unit building, and I don't even hear support for a 2-unit building. And certainly for Mr. Pierre to purchase the building, he can make a boatload of money as a single family house if he wanted to turn it around and sell it. So there's this developer will make money whatever happens. I would really encourage, let's listen to the immediate neighbors on the block. Lauren is telling us how much effort he's had to put into it to make the property at least tolerable. And has nothing to do with Mr. Pierre. He would be the new owner and he would certainly clean it all up. So thanks, Lauren, for what you're doing. But I think I would fall in favor of supporting the immediate neighbors and what they're telling us about the block. That's where I am.
I have a clarification question, Mr. Pierre. I live on Ann Street as well. Well, first as a comment is that we did speak to some of the immediate neighbors on Register Street, which is right in back of the house, and they are also opposed to making it a 3-family unit. You've mentioned a couple times earlier, Molly. My question is, Molly, I think, made the comment about either the 2 versus a 3, and you said that a 2 and a 3 is virtually the same, about 4 or 6. Can you clarify that? I don't understand how you're looking at the math there and how that is the same.
Essentially, you would get the same bedroom count because the size of the property does not change. You essentially could combine, let's say if you had 3 units, you essentially can combine 2 units into one, and so you'll just have 1 unit that's obviously much larger than the others.
I'm still not following you though, because wouldn't that mean if you had 2 residents in each of those apartments, you'd have 6 people? Wouldn't that be more parking, more noise, more recycling than a single family home? Again, there was 1 resident before. Maybe a real estate thing. It's just not clear for me how it's the same.
No. I mean, I was just talking in terms of bedroom count.
Okay, so using a different metric, that clarifies it. I'm not looking at it that way. I don't know if the other residents were either, but thank you for clarifying that. It's not the same.
Well, he's comparing two bedrooms, I mean, 2 units to 3 units, not a single family dwelling. A single family dwelling would probably be, or could be, children that don't drive. And therefore wouldn't impact parking as much.
Right.
All right, are there any other questions or comments? Kurt?
All right, yeah, I had one question on the, I thought he said there was no addition. By SSTAT, there's 2,286 square feet at 236 South Ann Street. But he's doing 3 1,100 square foot units, which is 3,300 square feet. So it seems like we almost have 1,000 square feet bust there.
Back to the property line or to the edge of the building.
Not entirely sure of the source file and the information that's contained in there, but I can just speak to the additional square footage that we're picking up is only by allowing that roof line to go to the all the way to the back of the house. You just pick up some additional square footage that way.
So Paul, I think what people are confused about, you're saying the roof line's going to the back of the house. So there's actually an addition to pick up the additional space, but you meant there's no addition like building onto the back of the whole house or something. Is that correct? But there actually is an addition on the 3rd floor?
Yes, yeah. If you're restricted to the 3rd floor, yes, there's an addition. There's an addition there, but yes, essentially, yes.
So the actual building will be large enough to house the 3 units because you're going to build an addition of how many square feet?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the full question.
Liz, I'm sorry to jump in. Joe Whitford is trying to get into the meeting. He's
Oh, I'm
blocked out.
sorry.
Can you please let him in? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. No, I was just saying, will the building be large enough, as per Kurt's question, to house the 3 units once that 3rd story addition is built?
It's just,
Yeah, I can share the floor plans with you if I haven't. Sorry for the feedback. I'm not sure when it's happening. I can share the floor plans with you if I haven't, but essentially on each level you'll have two bedroom, two baths. So yes, there is enough space there within the footprint to achieve that.
Does anyone else have questions? Joe, do we want to take this to a vote?
do both discussions first?
No. First, there needs to be, oh, sorry.
Typically, the person who is presenting is not in the room for the vote, so.
Oh, okay. So,
Advertise this. I'm sorry, I was kicked out for a while, so.
oh, sorry.
Who would want to kick you out, Joe?
No, I was trying to get in. I've been texting everybody.
Oh, poor baby. Well, we're glad you're here now.
So Paul, we're going to have you lead the meeting so that we can see if we're going to take this to a vote.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Liz, and thank you everyone else. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Paul.
Bye.
Okay, Joe.
All right. I missed everything. What are we voting on? Sorry about that.
So we are voting on taking 236 South Ann Street from what was essentially a single-family home into a 3-unit dwelling with 2 bedrooms in each unit.
And did we get a second on that?
Second.
All right. The rules are you have to attend 3 meetings, counting this one. You have to be over 18 and you must have paid your dues. So some of you may not be able to vote because you only put in first names and you could be missing attendance. So I'm asking everyone to send me by chat if you only have your first name, your last name, please. And also, if you don't think your name's showing up or it's just a picture, please send me your name by chat. First of all those opposed, say aye. Just doing a quick vote.
Aye.
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 You're opposed to changing it. Okay, all those for?
Aye.
We have 1 for.
Abstain.
The opposed win.
You have to ask
For the full count, because it's kind of hard.
Anybody abstain though?
Anybody abstain?
I abstain.
I'm abstaining.
We have 2
I
abstain.
abstain. 3 abstain.
Okay.
I thought I saw Suzanne had an abstention in there somewhere. Maybe I read that wrong.
So it's turned down.
Okay.
What was the count, Joe?
What's that?
What was the count? What was the count for?
Yes. Or no?
It looked like I'm doing a guess because I was doing it by hearing and I can't see everybody's hands. But it was,
Why doesn't everybody that say no call out their name? Shirley?
Yes, no.
No.
Okay.
Nick?
Kurt Schiller.
Kurt Schiller's a no. Shirley's a no. Nick, are you a no?
I'm
Yeah,
a no,
me,
but
no.
technically I don't think I've paid dues
Oh,
This-
okay.
by multiple meetings, so I can't technically
Oh,
vote.
okay. Then you don't. Who else was a
I'm a
no?
no.
And if you could say your
I'm
name.
a no.
I'm a no.
Molly, Brian.
I'm a no.
Bill
Bill.
was,
Bill's a
myself,
no.
Mark
I'm a
was,
Mark is a
Dan
no.
and Allison are no's.
Brian, were you a
Marla and
no?
Sean.
Ann's a no.
Beth
is a no. Allison is a no.
Beth, Allison.
We're up to 10 no's right now, so it definitely,
Okay. All right, so we're gonna move right along to Nate Prettle, and he's gonna present 1709 Bank Street.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for your time this evening. My name is Nate Prettle. I'm a land use consultant. I'm here on behalf of the owner and developer of 1709 Bank Street. And first of all, 1709 Bank Street is adjacent to the Dockside Veterinarians. It's across the street from the church that fronts on Broadway, also across the street from the 8-unit rectory or school building that used to be associated with the church. So we're a little sort of towards the western edge of the neighborhood in the transition zone between commercial and residential. And Liz, if it's okay, I think I'd like to share the screen first off with some pictures of the existing property. I know you had mentioned that Evan Helfrich categorized this as a long-term single-family owner-occupied. I'm not sure where those records come from, and I'm certainly not arguing with it. But if we take a look at the, is this showing up for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Blueprint.
All right. So you can see the existing structure, and to be clear, I don't consider this a conversion. Is what you'll see. This is a property that has clearly been for some length of time, 2 separate units. When the current owner bought it in January of this year, it was described as a single dwelling unit as well as a commercial space on the first floor. It was his understanding that it was some sort of barber shop or salon. But if you look through the pictures, to me, it looks more like a pardon, I'm trying a little bit of difficulty. Okay, here we go. More like a residential unit. You know, the city records are not necessarily clear on this, but you can tell by the finishings and the fixtures that this is, you know, was not a long time as a single family. The kitchen in itself, here's the first floor downstairs. And the units are separated from the first floor, which is as an entrance off of Bank Street, and then a separate Sally Port entrance, which leads to the second floor is the loft, which is an additional unit. And the proposal here is to just renovate the property. There's no exterior changes other than cleaning up the existing facade and use it and renovate the properties and use it as a 2-unit rental property. Second floor. And we are going to the zoning board really for both a determination from the board about the prior use and whether or not they want to approve this, and how they could approve a lot area variance for this, which would be very minimal. That's sort of, I can get into the zoning specifics if you'd like, but after everyone has a chance to go through these plans, I will share the proposed plans. The only, quote, structural changes, and they're not structural in the sense of the structural integrity of the building, are closing in, adding a few walls in the first floor unit, because it was sort of laid out more of a studio, unless that was the commercial space up front, and to create a 1-bedroom. You can see here, these would be the new walls. And then on the loft area, there's a proposal to raise the ceiling crossbars up between 8 to 10 inches to allow a little more room to stand. I mean, the ceiling height would be about 7 feet, 7.5 feet once that's done. Other than that, there are barely any changes proposed to the building. If I go back to the pictures, you can see there have been existing two existing gas, water, and electric meters for some time. And frankly, yeah, I see this situation all the time where the city zoning records or permitting records don't necessarily match what's actually happening. And that's in itself could mean a number of things. It could mean that someone was using it unlawfully. It could mean that the records are simply lost. And at this point, I guess I could open it up to, here you can see, there's the different meters. Open it up to any questions.
Thank you for verifying the utilities.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to read what Evan wrote about this property.
Sure.
It says, for what it's worth, city records indicate that it has always been a single-family home, same family there since 1973, and the property was sold to the current investors by the estate of the deceased owner. The owner was receiving the homeowner's tax credit for owner-occupied properties at the time of his death. So this would be an investor conversion of a single-family home to a 2-unit home. So I guess what I'm uncertain about is, can a owner receive owner-occupied tax credit if he's renting out a unit in it? I don't.
Well, I don't believe so. Certainly not for the portion that's being rented out. But I mean, clearly, you can tell this has been here for quite a long time. So I don't know, if the prior owner was necessarily being honest with the city. Frankly, it's none of my business. I mean, we're dealing with what we can see, both physically and through city records. And that's the situation. And we're going to take us to the zoning board and see what happens. I'd love to get input from the community. Any questions or any suggestions? Kurt?
Yeah, well, I had 206 South Washington Street, and I converted that to 2 units back in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say I received homestead tax credits for that building, and I probably scammed somebody, but, I never did anything, but I think I got it for the whole building. I made an apartment out of the first floor, and I lived on the second, third. But, I went through all the zoning process, so I don't know how the tax credit works if it's an owner occupied with a rental.
Yeah. In my experience with tax credits, not the homeowner one, some of the other city tax credits is if it's, a residentially focused tax credit and you have commercial space, you don't get it for that portion, but which you may use very well may be able to claim it for the whole building. Again, I don't know anything about the tax credits received by the prior owner of this property or what they may or may not have communicated. So, but thanks for the input.
Well, I hope it's not a confession on my part.
I don't think anyone's going
Probably
to.
statutory.
We know
the
your
statute of limitations.
Sure.
Who else has questions?
Kurt, you realize this is recorded.
Right.
Do we have anyone
This
in
is Jeff.
the meeting tonight who lives on the block?
Yes,
Jeff.
And who is that?
Jeff May.
me.
Okay, I wonder what the resident of the block is thinking about this property.
So this has been a puzzle because I just found out about a half hour ago that the application did say it was presently a commercial use, which I can vouch, I can verify because I've been in it with the prior owner that she lived on the first floor and she had a unit that she rented out on the second floor. Now, I think that, we went through Transform recently, and I do have a suspicion that the code changes we may have seen an introduction or application of multifamily homes to a 2-unit versus when it used to be 3, apparently. So it does seem like it's interesting to hear from Nate that you weren't sure, you're looking for a determination on what the current use is, because I'm a bit puzzled too, based on what I've heard of the records versus what I know from my personal experience. There is, if it's a conversion, there is that issue. I know you mentioned, Nate, that it's just a minor. I believe you're referring to the fact that it's less than 1,500 square feet of above ground.
Yes, that's part of it, as well as that in this zoning district, when you really, by all sense of the word, convert a property that in its, use on paper as well as its physical construction and layout is a single family dwelling, and you physically want to go in and chop that up, that is considered a conversion that would need approval in this zoning district by the city council. And in a case here where the records are not clear and you have a physical construction that has clearly been something other than single family dwelling for quite some time, it's not that cut and dried. And in most cases, the zoning administrator, instead of saying, or I can either sign off on a permit, or 2, the other end, you have to go to city council, we'll send it to the zoning board and give them the authority to approve or deny this.
Yeah, so I do find it an interesting situation because I think it seems like the rules of conversion would make it very difficult because of you're supposed to add parking if you add a unit. But I do know that the use of the building, and for most of my time here, the use of the building was, a rental, a person living on the first floor and renting out the second.
Yeah. So Jeff, maybe if we took you into the zoning office, they would have signed off on this without zoning board approval. But in this case, when the records are a little murkier, and I appreciate some of that background, because frankly, I don't know, and I don't want to act like I'm communicating anything with certainty here. I mean, the owner doesn't, when he bought it, was not entirely sure, and we're just sort of dealing with what we can see.
How do you feel about this, Jeff? Personally, this is close to you on your block.
Yeah, personally, I think this is the best block, the most accommodating block for this type of property, because it is not, half of the block is occupied, the other half is a church. There's a lot of turnover between, like Nate said, the commercial. It's the sort of the blending area between the commercial and the residential. So there is space for, it's not heavily parked. We actually park people from other blocks in this section, So personally, I think it's a good use, frankly.
You have no objection with being proposed? I
don't object, except the only objection or hesitance I have is if there's a technical, this is where we were discussing, all right, if it requires a variance because it doesn't meet the requirement for square feet, how do we handle that? Because if it seems like those decisions are what we are trying to get to in our land use as we rewrite our land use guidelines, is how do we want to consistently apply. For this particular case, I would not have objected to it, and I still don't object to it personally. I just do have concerns with that, if it is technically not something that the code allows, what position or posture, how do we posture and support something that the code doesn't permit?
So the code, you're
But
saying,
that's
what is the actual square footage for 2 unit? And what is this house a square footage of?
So in the R8 district, you need 750 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit, which would be 1,500 square feet. This has roughly, I think, 1,360 square feet. So
Okay,
you're
so
about
we're
140
missing
square feet of lot area shy of
140 square feet. All right, so.
And Jeff, to your point, I think whether it's community association policies or the zoning code, they don't always fit perfectly in terms of precedent for situations like this. I think it is very different to apply that policy for what is by all intents and purposes a single family dwelling and say, well, does this make sense versus something that is having almost no change to it other than being updated and improved.
Okay. Does anybody
Can I
else
say
have
something?
questions? Kurt?
Okay.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I found it very supportive of this possible zoning change that Nate was able to bring forward the utilities, and Jeff, has witnessed the two dwelling use, so it's.
And also the fact that Jeff is the one, Jeff is the one on the block, that's close by that thinks that this one is okay.
Can I also point out?
Gas or electric, that's when you run into your problems if you're trying to do a multi-dwelling thing. If you don't have proper licensing, you can't get the dual unit or the dual meter. They've already got dual meters, so they must have been 2 units.
If I can say, Jeff pointed this out earlier, I think it's a very curious block with the church that takes up so much of the I guess the frontage on the block. So I think Jeff points out that it's quite an unusual and an exceptional location in the neighborhood, that it's the one half of the block is owned by a quarter of the block is covered by the church, which makes this conversion to 2 units or continued 2 units very different from most other blocks in the neighborhood. So I think that's an important when we look about density of parking and residents. There's a lot of people not living in the church building right now. So I think that's important to notice that.
Well, if my memory serves me correctly, I think that building used to have something like a furrier or something on the exterior of it. It should be combined with dockside.
No, those are the two adjoined. Those are two. The 1705 and 1707. The Eleni was right next to this one. The furrier was right next to this one.
I'm getting confused. All right, bye.
All right, so we don't have any other questions, I think we should try to take this one to a vote. Joe?
Hop off here, Liz, before you guys vote.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Liz, Brian, thank you, everybody, for your time. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email you. And I always appreciate coming before your group. You have a very engaged and active association.
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, see you, Liz.
Bye. Okay, Joe?
We didn't have someone
I make a motion that we go along with the proposal.
Do we have a second?
We support Nate's proposal.
I second.
Okay, Liz seconds, Brian seconds.
Well,
Can we have
what,
discussion?
saying the
Let's have a
proposal,
discussion.
2 units, is that what the proposal is?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
not to object to the land use or the square footage of the land use or whatever.
Yeah.
That was
And
my
they've
question.
they actually have a hearing date, I think September 8th. So there's an actual application on file that we could say that is what we could appeal to the specific thing in the application if we want to frame the motion.
So are we going to do a letter of support, or is it we're just verbally giving them support?
Why don't we just do nothing and let it go as it's going to go?
Let's do a vote to see if we do a letter of support.
There's
So
a
can I amend Barbara's motion or whoever made the motion?
No, I
I'd like
wanna
to
amend
amend it.
I want to vote on the motion as it is.
So the motion will be, that we're gonna vote on, that we are gonna write a letter of support.
No, I
No?
thought
Not going to object to it.
she said she didn't want to do the letter.
He does not want to
No,
do
I
that.
didn't say anything about a letter. I'm just saying that I think we should just support it and not object to it.
We're gonna support it and not object to it.
Right.
All right?
Without any kind of letter?
He
I
didn't
think we
ask for a
should at
letter.
least add a letter.
Jeff will
Yeah.
send an email. Jeff and Liz.
He didn't ask for a letter.
Yeah.
All right, if he
I
wants,
mean, I think that was
a
implied.
letter, I think we could say that the community organization does not object to it.
Does not object to a letter.
I don't object to a letter. I don't object to the proposal.
Okay, so we're gonna vote for a letter and support to the proposal.
Yes.
Well, wait, I thought Blair had some discussion.
That my discussion is that if Barb really doesn't, if we're not worried about this based on the square footage, then let's just do nothing and let it go. And because we have no objection, then the zoning board is likely to do what they're likely to do. By supporting it, we're implying that we're okay with the fact that we know he's not going to get 750 square feet. He's going to have less than that. So why would we support something that's against the law?
Because we live in Fells Point.
All right.
We could say that we are supporting this
Okay, I'm
exception.
going to call the question. Let's just vote. Let's call the question.
We haven't decided what we're voting on. Barb, I thought said she had no objection. So to me, let's just do nothing.
Well, actually, I thought Barbara submitted a proposal, and I'd like to call the question on the proposal that was submitted.
I think, I am not in any way opposed to apartments in our neighborhood. And these are smaller apartments that maybe will be more affordable for perhaps some of our Latino neighbors who can't afford what the last developer was proposing, which are, market rate housing. So I am in favor of having some smaller affordable apartments in the neighborhood. And if the neighbors do not object to it, I think that we should support it.
I think that's a sound argument.
So let's vote and vote in favor or not in favor of it.
So let's do are we doing a motion to write a letter of support?
Yeah, that's what Nate wants. If he just, we can write a letter. If he doesn't care about a letter, we don't have to write a letter.
Can we take that
vote? It's up to Jeff and Liz.
All right, let's take a vote with a letter of support.
The motion is for a letter of support and supporting Nate's project. Correct?
Yes.
I think you have to restate the project that it's a 2-unit rehab or something. Or have to include that in there.
Well, Jeff May will include all that. The 2-unit rehab with the lacking of 114 square feet of land per way.
Well, how do I find?
Okay.
All right, let's vote on that. We're already at an hour and 10 minutes. Let's vote on that.
Okay, who seconds that? Who seconds it? Okay, Brian seconds it. So Joe, take a vote.
Okay, all those in favor. Now, if this is going to be a little bit slower, let's do it. Can you say your name? We'll do it by roll.
Barbara Moore.
Barbara Moore, okay?
Yeah.
I see.
Herb
Brian.
Schiller.
Dan?
Yes.
In
Kurt?
favor.
In favor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Yes, yes.
Who's yes?
Molly
Molly.
Fine says yes.
Molly Fine.
Shirley Score says yes.
Okay.
Mark Hoffman says yes.
Who is that last person?
Mark Hoffman says yes.
Okay, Mark.
Brian McGalley says yes.
Dan Harrison?
Dan Harrison says yes.
Okay.
And Allison Dugdale says yes.
Okay.
Bill Miltonberger says yes.
What else? Okay. Those opposed?
Blair Freed says no.
Anyone else?
Marla's no.
Anybody abstain?
Anyone abstain?
I abstain.
I abstain. Beth is abstaining.
Liz Bement is abstaining.
John Becker is abstaining.
Okay, we have 11 for, 2 against, and 4 abstain. It carries.
So really quick, if you've been interested in any of the last hour and 15 minutes of land use stuff, we are looking at rewriting our land use policy. If you're interested in that, put it in the chat. We are rewriting that over the next 6 months, so we don't have to do this in meetings, because this was way too long.
And think about how fascinating land use is. So you might all want to sign up and be on this committee. Okay.
So much fun.
All right, the next thing, we're going to get right on to the treasurer's report. Pascal.
Committees, let's keep it 3 minutes. We got to get this
3
through.
minutes, really quick. We're going to speed through this.
Okay, very quick. UFPIA's current balance is $11,675. The major expense in the past month was $487 towards beautification. We've got another, I believe it's $350 beautification expense probably coming due in the next few days, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. The next thing is beautification. Brian Magali.
Hey, so I'm gonna speak for Lisa. I'm not sure if maybe some folks know, maybe some don't, but Lisa and Alma are both dealing with some pretty significant health issues right now. So, we're all thinking of them. They're all, key people and enormous contributors to our community. So let's all hope for the best for them and swift recovery. So I'll just go through real quick. So the tree pit bumpers, we've got 15 in total. We've installed 5 so far, mostly on Ann Street. So that's going along swimmingly. We have secured a $10,000 grant for tree bed adornment, and I'll let Lisa talk more about that at the next meeting. I don't want to give that short shrift because it's a pretty big deal. The Saturday cleanups continue. Those basically follow along 2 tracks. There's trash, and then there's weeding. On the trash side, we've seen less participation lately. I think a lot of it's just sort of the summer doldrums. Folks are getting busy, but they're still happening every Saturday, 10 to 12. Come out for 10 minutes or 2 hours. If you need supplies, we can provide bags, gloves, vests, and pickers. So reach out to Beautification or to me directly if you'd like, and I can provide that material for you. For weeding, we've got 2 teams that tend to go out, led by Mark and John. They bring along string trimmers and pick an area to do some pretty heavy duty weeding, and then they follow along with some weed killer. We need some more participation. It's a non-trivial job. So again, if folks are interested in helping out, please reach out to Beautification and we'll set you up with a team to join. We still have a handful of recycling bins to hand out. So if you happen to notice any of your neighbors are not using proper or suitable receptacles for their recycling, reach out to us. We have a few of these recycling bins that we can provide that have a cover that's attachable, and it is a much better solution to people putting things out in paper bags that get blown over. Dumpster day is still on the schedule for 8/29. Mark, jump in if we know any different, but as far as we can tell right now, the city does appear to be hosting or supporting these events. And if we hear any different, we'll be sure to let the association know. Mark, is that track with what you know?
That's correct. I called them Monday morning, and the latest is that everything's on schedule for the 29th.
Okay. And that's what I had. Thanks, everyone.
Can't hear you.
Liz, I think you're muted.
Okay, the next person will be Jan with the community garden and the newsletter.
Hi, everybody. We were able to repair the mosaic sidewalk, so thanks for your patience during that process. And thanks again to Kurt and Barb for helping to repair it. We're going to have a fundraiser, a garden virtual tour on September 25th. It's going to highlight some of the garden items. Include the community garden. There will also be a mixology class as an optional portion of it. Tickets will go on sale in another week or so. $20 for the full package, or $15 if you just want the garden tour without the drink. For the newsletter, Happy Hour Heaven is now open on Mondays. The Corner Theater has a new package where you can become a member and get complimentary use of their space, and you get 3 show passes. I don't know when they're going to start up the shows again, though. Spa Adagio is having a stoop sit on September 3rd. You can get a tour of the spa, but you have to wear a mask. And I would just like to add, to support all of our sponsors as well as our local businesses. I've been told that if you order food through Grubhub, the restaurant loses 40% to them. So if possible, try to order it and pick it up yourself so that our local businesses can stay in business for us. Deadline for September is the 1st at 5, and that's it.
You're muted again, Liz.
Sorry. The next person will be Molly Fine for education. Molly, are you here?
We may have lost Molly.
Maybe we lost Molly. Maybe she'll come back. Let's go on to fundraising. Is anybody here from fundraising?
I'm not here, but I already said it for her, is the Garden Ramble Tour. That's our fundraiser. So stay tuned for that. It'll be fun.
All right. Jeff, land use.
Okay, well, I think we spent, I want to yield my time to everyone else because we've spent so much time talking land use, but we did meet with Matt DeSantis, who's the community planner for Southeast last week, and had some good discussion with him about some things to think about going forward as we rewrite our guidelines, and we're going to use tools to brainstorm on those. But other than that, I think we spent enough time on land use unless you have any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Molly said that her Zoom mysteriously shut down. There's not much to report. School starts virtually September 8th, as does after school, and students have devices and hotspots. So that was what she had to report. We'll move on to Matt Barnes and safety.
Hi, guys. I only have a couple of things to talk about. The first is we're going to have another community stoop sit September 3rd, probably like 6 to 8, something like that. So talk to your neighbors, get out on your front porches, walk around, talk to each other, share some drinks, share some laughs, and enjoy each other's companies and network. National Night Out is still October 6th, I think 6 to 8. We will be supplying some drinks around the community. I think that Suzanne found a local supplier for some masks to possibly sell some masks around the neighborhood as well. And Liz also has some masks for free if they're required. If no one has any. But like anything else, we encourage you guys to get out amongst the community and talk to one another, share some drinks, and once again, network, buy some masks if you need to add to your wardrobe.
Matt, what was the date of your first event? What was that again?
September 3rd. It's the same night as the other stoops that I heard about.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you have like a stoop sit going on your block on September 3rd and you want to have masks to give out, I just picked up a whole bunch from Hopkins. They're reusable cloth masks, and you could just email me or text me, and I can get some to you to hand out on your block. So.
Okay. And the last thing I want to touch on is we're trying to implement a block liaison program. And I know we touched base on it the last meeting or whatnot. And basically it encompasses, you have one central person on a block, a street block, that kind of communicates amongst the neighbors and lets them know like any information that you'd like to share, whether it be like recycling's not being picked up or, hey, you need to pick up your stuff on the street. This person's out of town. Let's keep an eye on their house. Basically, it's a networking tool. So what I've done in here in the last week is I created basically 36 Facebook group pages, one for each block in our neighborhood. So what I'm looking for is our volunteers to take over each page. I have 1800 block of Gulf Street. Dan has 1900 of Bank Street. I know Brian talked about possibly doing 200 block of Ann Street. And I'll share my screen real quick to show you kind of what it looks like. You can do whatever you want with it. Brian, nope, I'm gonna get 30 more seconds out of this. I listened to all that stuff for 13 hours. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Basically, it's very much a template. Like here's the example, 400 Wolf Street neighbors. You can call it whatever you want. You can change this background. When you communicate out to me, I'll make you the administrator along with myself. We'll also add the Upper Fells Point Improvement Association page to this. So these individual pages will get information from that page as well. You can do what you want with it. It's up to you. It's like I said, use your creativity. It's your tool to network with your neighbors. Liz did it with the 300 block of Chapel Street, I think it was. I think that's the block, or Durham or whatever. That's the only one I did not create. So it goes from Washington to Broadway, not including Broadway, but all the side street, all the alley streets, and all of the main streets. So all you do is you add members just like anyone else. Dan has, I'm the only member of the Wolf Street one at the moment. And basically the administrator and the administrator.
And if you have any more questions, you can ask later. We got to move it on.
And okay, and I'm going to get 25 more seconds. And what we're going to do is someone's going to take this over. I'll be able to see it, share with your neighbors, zhuzh it up, make it yours, and it's a start. So reach out to me, safety@upperfellspoint.org. Want to be an administrator and start your block liaisoning.
I just want to add that the latest thing we've done on the 300 block of South Chapel is we are organizing the cafe lights room page. And so we're getting it done, and that's done. Okay. The next person is Kurt for traffic and parking.
Okay. Last month, we had submitted a letter to DOT about the survey that had been done by the traffic committee previously, and have heard back now, and DOT has received funding for a feasibility study at a 30%.
Mute everybody, please.
And a 30% design project for the Wolf and Washington Street corridor. This was awarded by Maryland Department of Transportation Bikeways Program, and will evaluate and conceptualize potential bike lane infrastructure in this corridor. That's all the information that has been given to us. It still has to go before the Board of Estimates, before Baltimore City. So I don't know. The information Brian and Ed Tenney and Dan had gathered with the survey really hasn't been discussed with Department of Transportation. This was sort of their response, waiting to see what's going to go forward with this. All right, I got some other stuff, but I'm going to skip to a Zoom meeting that I was in for 2 hours prior to this meeting, which is for zoning or bill or a potential Baltimore City bill 20-0561, presented by Ryan Dorsey and Shannon Sneed to change the zoning code. The three big things with this bill is there will be no parking lots built ever again in open space zones. An open space zone is a park, and there are some cemeteries in Baltimore City that are open space zones. 2, eliminate any new gas stations being built within Baltimore City. And 3, it would delete all parking requirements in all areas in Baltimore City per the zoning code. So what we talked about in land use would no longer be part of it if this bill goes forward. Ryan Dorsey said it is very unlikely that he would be willing to amend or change the bill. So I guess if you feel parking should stay part of the zoning code, I'm going to take, like Matt did, 30 more seconds. You know, I would just recommend you contact your council person, be it Z Cohen or Shannon Sneed, and express your concerns about this. There are people there from Butchers Hill, and you know, some adjoining communities, Bolton Hill, actually someone from Pigtown, that we're talking about the older inner city where we are very dense. If you take the minimum parking requirement away, you have people wanting to jam 3-4 units into all these row houses and bring all the additional cars. I have a problem with density, but you know, I don't know.
So just to be clear about what Kurt's talking about is that single family conversions, like, you know, what they were talking about right now, like let's say I have a single family house, I want to make it 2 units or 3 units. I need to provide off-street units, off-street parking, 1 spot for each unit. So that's kind of, you know, something I have to deal with in order to create that multifamily dwelling. And so what they want to do is take that away. C1 buildings have no parking requirements. C2 has parking requirements, which is a high density building, and that they want to take that, the parking off-street parking requirements away. So it will really change the way, you know, drivers and people in the city interact and the parking that's available around. So I think that it's you know, sometimes people like, oh, what are they talking about? But I think it's just something that people need to be aware of. That's what his bill is saying. We don't want any any off-street parking requirements. So if you're interested in that, please do contact your councilman and get involved.
Yeah, and you can contact me if you want more information on the bill and the bill number. I have any more time, Brian? 30 more seconds? No, I've requested a parklet manual from DOT. Maybe you can help with this. I've done it twice, the 12th and today, and I still have not received that, just so we can learn all the ins and outs of doing a parklet and what is required by Baltimore City. One last thing. There is interest in designing traffic measures to slow traffic on the non-parking alley streets, and I really want to follow up with that. All right, time, Brian, unless you want to talk about parklets.
Okay, is there any new business, anything anyone else wants to bring up? No. Okay, so for our next meeting, Robin Lewis, Delegate Robin Lewis, is going to talk about the Livable Streets Coalition. which she has helped create, which really ties into the slow street that we have now on Bank Street. That's part of her whole vision for Baltimore, to make it livable, walkable streets that can be scootered on, bicycle rided on, and make it safe streets for everyone. So she's going to be our speaker next month and talk about that. Anything else, Brian? No.
She was on YPR today talking about it.
Oh, cool. Okay. All right. So thank you everyone for attending, and we will see you next month.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.